I am so excited to talk to you today about this type of blog post. To me, I believe from my experience that this represents one of the biggest opportunities to drive a lot of traffic to your site through a single blog post. And that is through the query group type of blog post. This is a special type of staple post where we're going to differ a little bit from what we've done in the past. Normally, we're going to start with kind of one search query to write a blog post on. And yes, we may use the people also ask and other recommendations from Google to help determine what to put in the subheadings, what sort of questions we want to answer throughout the blog post, and maybe even write multiple answer targets to try to win snippets for a few different searches, not just the primary search query. But in this type of blog post, we're going to take that like 100 steps further, okay? We're going to write a blog post that's not necessarily targeted to any one specific search query, but that actually has the potential to rank for literally dozens of unique search queries. I'm not talking about dozens of different wordings of one major search query. I'm talking about many, many unique search queries. And this is how it's done. I want to start with an example, then we'll dive into the specifics of how to do it. If I do a search in Google, I'm using Safari here. I never log into Google on Safari and always clear my history. And that allows me to use this as kind of my testing ground to see what's ranking well without using my search history to help drive that. So I'm going to Google RV depreciation. And ranking number one is this article from camperreport.com. This is a website that Jim and I built. Jim wrote most of the original content on it. We had freelancers write on it. We had our own Creator Studio writers write on it. And then we sold the site. So we don't own it anymore. But this article is still, from what I can tell, exactly the way Jim left it, including the funny wavy picture. All right. So let's talk a little bit about this article and why it works so well. First of all, there does seem to be a primary search query, and that is RV depreciation, or how much do RVs depreciate? But that's actually a really, really broad question. And so in this article, yeah, there's some conclusions here at the very beginning, but then we have some cool data that came from original research. Jim actually took the time to go and look at listings of different types of motorhomes all across the country. I mean, you could find these online and just spend a few hours putting all of these into a spreadsheet and then looking up those specific models to see how much they were when they were new, how old they are, and now suddenly, boom, you have a calculation for depreciation for each one. And then based on their age, you just group these up together. It doesn't take data scientists to be able to calculate some average depreciation here based upon that sort of data. It's nowhere near the data set that sites like NADA and RV Trader probably have, and yet this is ranking really well. You've got this Class A motorhome depreciation rates in detail, very specific for each year, pretty much. Not all years are covered, but with his data set, he was able to get quite a bit here. Then you have Class C motorhome, same data. Then you have travel trailers and fifth wheels. So we open another tab, and we search for something like Class A motorhome depreciation. And what do we see? NADA ranking number one. That's no surprise to me. But then camperreport.com, same article. And what if we do Class C? Same thing. What if we do travel trailer? There we go, ranking number two. Again, right under NADA guides. What about fifth wheel? There we are, actually ranking number one. What if I just do camper? There we are, ranking number two. And so you can see those are generally unique searches because it's, Class A motorhome depreciation, not just RV depreciation. It's actually a different search. And he's still ranking in the top few for each one of those. Each one of those is driving traffic to the website, not just searches around RV depreciation. But now let's take that a step further. What if we do something like how much do Class A motorhomes depreciate in 7 years? That's pretty specific. You would never write a blog post about 7-year Class A motorhome depreciation. I mean, I could come up with a whole bunch of cool information. I could talk about kind of the range of how much they depreciate and what factors influence how much they depreciate, so you could figure out exactly how much to pay for a specific 7-year-old Class A motorhome. But that's a bit overkill for that small of a search term. And it's not any more helpful than the article Jim wrote. Look at this. He's actually ranking number 1 for how much do Class A motorhomes depreciate in 7 years. That's pretty awesome. Now, when you go back to the article, you realize how many of these specific search queries is this site probably ranking in the top 3? Most of them? All of them? And when you consider that, even though each one might be getting anywhere from 1 to 50, maybe in some cases 100, in a couple cases maybe a couple hundred searches per month, if he's ranking in the top for all of them, suddenly you see how this adds up to be multiple thousands of searches every single month, where he's ranking number 1, 2, or 3. And so this article was organically driving literally thousands of page views to the website every single month. So how do you do that on your own site? Well, in your search analysis, you probably came across some search queries where when you actually did estimate the search volume, it was just too low. It's hard to justify writing an article when really the search volume is probably under 500, right? However, what if you could group some of those together? What if some of your search queries are pretty specific things? Well, if they can be grouped together under one broader topic, maybe even grouped with one search query that you would write, independent of the others, like it's good enough, there's enough traffic. For example, RV depreciation or anything, how much do RVs depreciate? That's a search query that you would want to write an article for. So what if you come across some of your other search queries and you just group them together under that one and you make sure that you cover them? And what if you looked for any and every opportunity possible to show actual data? Oftentimes data tables and lists can be a gold mine for winning lots and lots and lots of rankings. We have seen poorly written articles from over a decade ago continue to rank number 1 for a lot of specific search queries simply because they have a large data table that has all the information in it. And you've got to think that other people have written articles that are more specific on some of those search queries since then. We actually did a test a couple years ago where we took some of these types of articles where we were ranking really well, but it's really broad, and we were ranking for a bunch of different search queries, and we wrote some articles that addressed some of those specific search queries. Not only did we not get more traffic, because you would think we're kind of cannibalizing some of our own traffic there, we didn't even outrank our own articles with a more detailed article on those smaller search queries. Why not? Well, when you do a good job of these, you often end up writing an article where the holistic article is more valuable than the articles, the long tail articles that cover the more specific search queries in greater detail. Think about RV depreciation, for example. Do I get a lot of benefit in understanding the nuances of motorhome depreciation at 7 years? Not really. I don't gain anything over the broader topic of just understanding RV depreciation holistically. And if I see this article that covers the topic broadly, I actually get a lot more information that would be valuable to me, because I might also be looking at a 5-year-old motorhome and a 10-year-old motorhome. And so I'm going to get the whole picture, not just a little tiny piece. And so this gives us an opportunity to get a little bit away from the super long tail searches and writing articles specifically about those, and gives us an opportunity to take a lot of those more long tail searches and group them together and write one really good article. Now, in the example I gave, we had just a large data set, and that is one of the things that allowed this article to rank for so many different things. But the same thing works when you just kind of provide a lot of examples or cover a lot of small topics, also in a blog post. This can take a format of almost a list style blog post. For example, instead of writing a whole bunch of small blog posts about different jobs that you could get with an electrical engineering degree, You could write one big blog post that just talks about the different types of careers you can go into with an electrical engineering degree. You can provide a whole bunch of different examples, and then under each example, instead of just providing the example and giving it more like, here's an idea, you could go into this kind of job. You go into a little bit more detail. You talk about what it's like working in each of those kinds of jobs. Is it an office type job or is it a field type job? What's kind of the average starting salary, and then what's the average salary of a professional in this same career path 20 years later. Think about all the different pieces of information that you could give, and then structure it in a nice way that it's really easy for Google to see that you're providing this block of information about each one of those different job types. And then if somebody Googles something around, how much do electrical engineers in R&D earn, you have the potential of ranking for that. And even if they ask even more specific questions about some of those really specific jobs that electrical engineers might have, your article could potentially rank for all of them, not just for career ideas for electrical engineers. So now I challenge you to go back to your search analysis. Look for those search queries where the volume is just so low that you would never write that article, and see if there's another search query that you could pair it up with. Look at some of your search queries that you do want to write the article for, and think about opportunities that you could use to add a data table, or maybe just provide a lot of examples that answer a lot of other potential search queries that people are likely to have, even if the search volume for each one of those is likely to be very low.